The biggest misconception about philanthropy in terms of how it plays in the sustainability space is that either it's a silver bullet or it's going to solve the issues on its own. The energy transition is going to require 1 to 2 trillion in new net investment every year. Philanthropic investment every year is only 750 billion. It's nothing. So how can that investment be used to address this massive investment that's needed? Philanthropy can be a very catalytic lever and use that limited capital to really incentivize others and to bring other investors in. That's where I think the magic is. Philanthropy isn't historically necessarily very collaborative, and I think what's exciting in terms of foundations increasingly looking at industry transformations is that there is more and more initiatives by funders to come together and do things collaboratively. There's also funder-wide commitments that are being made, the International Philanthropy Commitment for Climate, where foundations are actually making pledges to not only do more to address climate, but also do it together. And also look at the assets that fund them. And how can you have a more holistic view of with your grant making and your assets to address the biggest challenge of our lifetimes. We're seeing philanthropy support a number of different industry transitions, from the energy transition to looking at the role of finance, financial services, and how do you influence that. For Laudes, we've chosen to work in 3 industries. So fashion is one. Another one is the built environment, which is an area I'm particularly excited by because of the sheer impact it has to address the emissions issue, the built environment being almost 40% of global emissions. And we also work in finance and capital markets. And what that means is we're trying to use our philanthropic funding to influence how money flows through the real economy. And that's really exciting because if you can actually convince investors and banks and asset managers to start looking at the cost of carbon or the cost of inequality and use that to actually push the companies they invest in to step up and have more action toward these things, then you could be way more effective than trying to address this directly with the companies. The natural capital costs that are associated with biodiversity could and should be incorporated in evaluation by an investor. So that's an intervention that I think, well, it needs to happen, it's starting to happen, but it's also something that I think could benefit from a push from the philanthropic side. Right now, about 2% of the funding by foundations worldwide is going toward climate mitigation, which of course impacts nature and biodiversity. So we really need more foundations to step up and actually open their wallets. The stakes are really high. We all know that. We've read the reports. We are in a crisis situation. We're not just talking about climate. We're not just talking about inequality. We're talking about biodiversity crisis. We're talking about a nature crisis. We're talking about a food crisis as the geopolitical situation changes around us. So we have to act, and we have to do it with a systems lens. And that's where I think there is a big role for foundations to step up, come on board, and work with us to try to address this crisis before it gets to the point of no return.